was that this was most likely a result of a Ukrainian air defense missile. But we'll let the investigation play out here.
So at this point, are you confident in saying that this was not a Russian missile?
We're going to let the investigation play out, and then once the results are released, we'll be confident in everything. But again, our information supports what President Duda has said earlier. So.
And then Chairman Milley, after this strike occurred, did you reach out to your Russian counterparts, or did any other military officer reach out to their Russian counterparts to protect against escalation? And if not, why not?
I do that through my staff to set the calls up. The short answer is yes. Some attempts were made, no success with the Russian counterpart. I did talk to my Ukrainian counterpart immediately, General Zaluzny. Talked to him several times, in fact. Also Polish counterpart and several other CHODs in Europe. And exactly what the Secretary said, investigation's ongoing. There's professionals there to do the forensics, all the debris that's in and around the impact site and so on and so forth. And very shortly we'll know all the facts, and we just don't know them right this second.
So Russia did not take the call?
Right. My staff was unsuccessful in getting me linked up with General Gerasimov. That's correct.
Let's go to the next question. ABC, Louis Martinez.
For Mr. Secretary, for Mr. Chairman, actually, I'd just like to follow up on Tara's question initially, because in his remarks, President Zelensky cited a conversation with your counterpart, General Zaluzny, saying that he had confirmed to him that it was not a Ukrainian missile. Based on your conversations with him today, was there a disconnect there? And then I'll follow up with another question.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about, he and I, our agreement between each other is not to talk about the substance of the conversations that we have. We have conversations several times a week, and we acknowledge that we have the conversations, but we don't discuss the substance of the conversation. So I have to honor that, and I'll continue to honor that. But I can tell you that right now, the investigation's ongoing. These are professional investigators. There is a debris field there. There's other forms of data that are going to be available that come from various technical means. And I suspect very shortly we will have very confirmed data as to what the point of origin is, point of impact, what the angle of the weapon system was, the flight trajectory. All of the details are going to be known in due time, but it's pretty early actually in the investigation. So we'll know that, and the Secretary will know that. President Biden will know that, and we'll all get informed here shortly by the investigators. And Poland has put together a team. They have lead, and they've put together a team of professional investigators to do that.
Thank you. So, Mr. Secretary, yesterday it was kind of the reality of the speculation that has been going on for months about how NATO might respond if a Russian missile went into NATO territory. On the opposite side, the United States has been very careful not to provide weapons systems that might reach into Russia. What about Crimea? If the United States, the supplied HIMARS systems are able to reach inside Crimea regularly, is that a concern given what we saw yesterday? And to follow up, sir, to your comments about earlier from last week about the possibility of discussions put on by a slowdown in the fighting, let's say during the winter. It sounds like the comments that you're making today about the winter are that the Ukrainians are going to continue very strongly. Are you pulling back from your comments from last week that you see an opportunity for negotiations with the Russians?
No, I think the Ukrainians should keep the pressure on the Russians, to the extent that they militarily can. But winter gets very, very cold, and the natural tendency is for tactical operations are going to naturally probably slow down. And right now what we're seeing is the lines from Kharkiv all the way down to Kherson, for the most part, are beginning to stabilize. Now, whether that means they will be stable throughout the winter or not, nobody knows. Nobody knows for certain. Come January, February, that ground probably will freeze, which could lend itself to offensive operations. So there could be a lot of activity in the winter, but typically speaking, because of the weather, the tactical operations will slow down a bit. And I think that President Biden and President Zelensky himself has said that there'll be at the end of the day there'll be a political solution. So if there's a slowdown in the actual tactical fighting, if that happens, then that may become a window possibly, it may not, for a political solution, or at least the beginnings of talks to initiate a political solution. So that's all I was saying.
And Crimea, sir.
Yeah, first, let me just agree with what the chairman just said in terms of, and there probably will be a slowdown in the fall and going into winter. The fall's a muddy season, as you know, and so is the spring. When the ground hardens, trafficability will probably improve, and then we may see more activity. But I would remind everyone that this war started in February. So winter does not mean that we're going to stop fighting, or the Ukrainians are going to stop fighting. I certainly, like the chairman, believe that they won't. And so we're going to do everything within our power to make sure that they have the means to accomplish their goals and objectives. And along that line, the goals and objectives of this fight are the Ukrainians. They're not ours. And so we haven't prescribed to the Ukrainians what they can and cannot do. And so our focus is to continue to provide them the means to be successful in their endeavors. And so that's my response to the question on Crimea. Again, the Crimea is an issue to be thought through and sorted out by the Ukrainian leadership. So.
Let's go ahead. Milley, New York Times.
First for General Austin. So with winter coming,
It's a bad habit. You keep calling me general, but
it's like ingrained in my head.
Yeah.
Secretary Austin, do you agree then with General Milley's comments in New York last week that Ukraine cannot achieve a military victory as defined by driving Russia out of all of its territory, including Crimea, and therefore should use winter as an opportunity to negotiate?
Again, having the chairman here, I think it's fair to allow him to really provide context for his comments. I think, and you've heard me say this before, there are countless numbers of people that have been amazed and astonished by what the Ukrainians have accomplished. And so I won't presuppose what's possible or impossible for them. What I am focused on is just making sure that they have the means to do two things. First is to protect themselves and their civilian population from some of the things that we've seen here recently with the aerial bombardments. The second thing is to enable them to achieve their goals and objectives on the ground as they continue to try to take back their sovereign territory. So we're going to continue to support them. And again, I think to this point we've seen them come up with very achievable goals and objectives. We've seen a very successful counteroffensive, both in Kharkiv and also in Kherson. And I think they will continue to keep the pressure on the Russians going forward. And in terms of what's a good time to negotiate, we've said repeatedly that the Ukrainians are going to decide that, and not us. And we will support them for as long as it takes. Now,